Right, I'd like to start off by saying Barak Tehawa, Bahashem Bahawashai, Bahashem, Bracha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is They Tried to Destroy the Vision. Now, this is dealing with going back, during the time when Yahushua was on the scene, and this lesson is inspired by a video I was watching earlier. The brother GMS inquired early too. I don't remember the brother's name. I believe he's either the second or third in command from the Detroit camp, GMS Detroit. And pretty much he was doing a lesson based off of a dream, which was a vision that he had about 7 years ago, in which he said, he's in the vision, he saw, the IUIC being destroyed by Yahushai, and he also saw the elect being delivered, something along those lines. And within the lesson, I watched it, then I watched a little bit of the beginning again, because I wanted to kind of get the feel again of what he had said, because we don't have the greatest memory. The dog's looking over here. And pretty much, the Spirit led me to go right to the exact mark where he started the vision, which was 52 seconds. And, that's when I was able to kind of remember a little better what he had said. And there was something he said within the lesson towards the ending of it, where he mentioned that back then when you had, Esau doing what they did, to crucify the Lord and everything along those lines, you had Israelites that were helping them, and that's true. And then I believe it was yesterday, I was watching the live camp with the down there in Baltimore. I believe the brothers are in Baltimore. I think they move around. The young elder Pishai with the other brother, and they were speaking, and he mentioned something that I mentioned in that lesson that day, to where when the Pharisees, wicked Pharisees, and them were on the scene, they thought that by destroying Yahushai, and they thought they destroyed him. They thought by, having him crucified, that the message would end with him, something along those lines. And when he said that, I kind of remember, I said, oh snap, because he mentioned it in the video. So this is pretty much, these are the ideas and thoughts for this lesson. And the title came to me, They Tried to Destroy the Vision. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off in Psalms, the 2nd chapter, and we bring this chapter out to deal with today, which it is dealing with today, but the vision, this vision here, began 2,000 years ago, when Yahushua was on the scene. And I'm going to explain it to you and give you the precepts on it. So let's go to Psalms 2:1. It says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine the vain thing? I don't have my other phone out here. I forgot it in the truck, little pressed for time. So I'm trying to get as much of this out as possible. So I don't have my other phone, so I'm not going to be able to look certain things up. I was going to fire this thing up here. It takes a little while, so if it comes back, if it fires up quickly, then I'll grab this word here for the word rage. But in the precept for the word rage, it says, or tumultuously assemble, right? And that's what happened, back 2,000 years ago. A lot of Israelites rejected Yahushua, and a lot of Israelites, beginning with the leadership of Israel back then in them different sects, they gave Yahushua over to the Romans. It was a very small portion of Israelites back then that believed in Yahushua, and eventually it grew, but the number of believers was a lot less than the number of deceivers. So let's get that real quick. Just bear with me 1 second. I only got 4 precepts to go through, so hopefully we could get to them. Because I, like I said, a little pressed for time. So let's go to Psalms chapter 2 and verse 1. And the word there, heathen's rage, is the Hebrew word ragash, to be in a tumult or commotion, to conspire, plot, right? And this is what it was. It was a conspiracy. It was a plot to get the Lord crucified, because the Romans had the authority and Jake was the ones that gave him over to it. So when it did that, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? And who are the people that are imagining a vain thing? The Israelites, beginning with the leaders. And the word there for imagine is meditate, because they thought that by giving Yahushua over to the Romans, they would actually cause division and the message of Yahushua to stop. And what you have to understand is that, Jake back then, they were, even though they were against the heathen, they were in league with the heathen. And matter of fact, I had this precept for the last precept, but let's get it now since the Spirit is pushing for it to come out now. We follow the Spirit to the best of our ability. So let's go to St. John. They had a league with the heathen, although they detested the heathen. But the heathen were in power. The heathen gave authority to these Pharisees, Sadducees, to Israel back then, because we were tributary to them. So in St. John 11 and 47, it says, "Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council, and said, What do we? For this man doeth many miracles." So pretty much they wanted to find a way to eliminate Yahushua out of the equation. This is why it says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? All right, and this was vain, but it was necessary, because prophecy had to be fulfilled. If we let him thus alone, in other words, if we just don't mess with him, because if you think something is bugged out, or or a person is not worthy, to be addressed, why spend so much time and energy trying to address them, trying to trip them up, trying to make them look bad? And lets you know today, out of all of these different religions out here and things that they're doing, these wacky-tacky Christians are not concerned with any of them except for the Hebrew Israelites. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him. And the Romans, so all men will believe on him because of what? The power of the message, right? It says, "And the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation," because the Romans gave them this authority and ability to function and deal with the people, because they were the heads, the leaders. So if they didn't keep things, under control, the Romans would remove them and put somebody in control that would be able to take care of that, right? It says, "And one of them, named Caiaphas," which this was the high priest, he said the right thing. But later on, because he pretty much he came to the defense of Yahushua, but then later on, he was the main one that gave Yahushua over to the Romans. It says, "Being high priest that same year, said unto them, You know nothing at all. Now consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not," because they understood about the Messiah. "And this spoke he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahushua should die for that nation." So at one point he was saying the right things, but then he flipped around and did something else. That's why it says, "Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing?" they thought that by giving Yahushua over, that would stop everything. That would eliminate the message, and it did not. It just made it grow greater, because Yahushua said, except the corn of wheat fall to the earth, it remaineth alone, but if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. You know, and you see the much fruit that's happening, because, you know, from that small mustard seed, you see the great tree, you know, that has been grown, and the fruits that have been grown from that small mustard seed that was sown, you know, in the streets and in the hearts of Jake in Harlem, New York, USA. And not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God, or the children of the Most High, that were what? Scattered abroad. Because this message was never to the nations. The scattered are the diaspora, which is the dispersion of the nation of Israel. So he said the right thing. So they were trying to figure out, what are we going to do? So, you know, the council was, what are we going to do about Yahushua? Because he's doing many miracles. If we don't do nothing, the people are going to come, they're going to believe on him, and they're going to remove us, right? Now, let's go from there to the same book of St. John 19 and 11. Now, this is later. And Caiaphas, Ananias, the chief priest back then, which, why would you want to call yourself a chief priest knowing what they did back then? It's beyond me, but anyway, that's another topic. They gathered together, Caiaphas and Ananias and the rest of the chief priests, and they were on the verge of, you know, trying to trap Yahushua up, but they couldn't trap him up. So what they did was they hired Israelites to bear false witness. And these same individuals are back here now. And I believe the brother in the video, in the vision that he had, he also said that he perceived that a lot of those people back then that gave Yahushua up were from the IUIC today. And I believe that. ISUPK, all of them groups. You know, hey, GMS included, because you had, you know, sellouts among all the groups. Because in the vision he said that Yahushua was sitting on his throne, you know, and he pretty much destroyed, you know, those that were in purple garments. And there was another brother that had a vision years ago about that, you know, in the chariots with the IUIC or something like that, something along those lines. I can't really remember all the particulars, you know. But anyways, St. John chapter 19, and let's go to 11. It says, Yahushua answered, thou couldst have no power at all against me. This is Yahushua speaking to Pontius Pilate. Except it were given thee from above, right? Therefore he that delivered me unto thee hath the greatest sin. Why? Because they should know better. But the thing is that prophecy had to be fulfilled. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? It says, and from thenceforth Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, if thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whosoever maketh himself a king speaketh against Caesar. So they were playing on the authority of the Romans. Remember, these dudes were clever. They were clever demons. Just like today, when you engage with these different groups, they're very clever in the way that they speak. But they're not that clever, because you can't be slicker than the one that created slickness, which is Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That's why Yahushai said, I will give you a mouth with wisdom, which none of your adversaries will be able to gainsay nor resist. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Yahushai forth and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour, and he saith unto the Jews, behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. You see? Who answered? The chief priests. We have no king but Caesar. So they made their choice. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Now let's go back to Psalms 2:1. Let's read to the 3rd verse, and then we're going to give you the precept to show you that this was dealing with back then, the beginning of it back then. How much more now? Psalms 2:1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The people are Israel, especially the leaders, and because the people that were at the cross cursing Yahushua out, those are demons. Those were Israelite demons. This is why the Apostle Paul came back later and said, not all that are Israel are of Israel, because not all Israelites are part of the elect. Even though they are the elect nation, they're not a part of the elect that will be saved in this time. It says, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord Yahweh and against his anointed, meaning Yahushai, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. See? Because remember, back then, it was thought sedition to speak against the Roman Empire of setting yourself up, as being a king or a sovereign nation. Because all nations back there had been subdued under the power and authority of the Romans. And those were thought to be, those cities and, regions were thought to be civilized because they were under Roman authority, and they carried on business as the Romans did. So they considered them to be civilized. Anyone outside of that was considered to be barbaric, because they were not, brought up under the customs and so-called civility of the Romans, So it goes on to say, well, matter of fact, now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Acts. The book of Acts, chapter 4, to show you that this vision and this prophecy began all the way back 2,000 years ago. This is the book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 23. And being let go, they went to their own companies dealing with the apostles and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said unto them. Yeah, because they were going back and forth dealing, they were telling them, you can't be teaching in this name, so on and so forth. And when they heard that, they lifted up their voice to the Most High with one accord and said, Lord, thou art the Most High, which has made heaven and earth and the sea and all that in them is. So they were praising Yahweh, who by the mouth of thy servant David has said, why did the heathen rage and the people imagine vain things? So this is dealing with back then, 2,000 years ago. They were applying this to the Roman rulers and also to the Israelites, the leaders among Israel and the Israelites that came against Yahushua. The kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his anointed, which we just read that in Psalms. For of a truth against thy holy child Yahushua, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod, which was a heathen, and Pontius Pilate, which was, officiating for the Roman Empire. The verdict is still out, if he's a Jake or not, but nevertheless, we're going to count him as a heathen for now until, we know different. And we won't know until the kingdom of heaven. When that which is in part, when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with. For of a truth against thy holy child Yahushua, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate, with the Gentiles, the other nations. This is why Yahushua said, you will give testimony against him. And the people of Israel were gathered together. See? So that shows you that prophecy in Psalms 2:1 began back then 2,000 years ago. So how much more now? Let's read that again. This is Acts 4:27. For of a truth against thy holy child Yahushua, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate with the Gentiles and the people of Israel were gathered together for to do whatsoever thy hand and thy counsel determined before to be done. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? It says, and now, Lord, behold their threatenings, and grant unto thy servants that with all boldness they may speak thy word. Because these same people were still coming against the apostles, because These wicked Pharisees and them thought that once Yahushua was moved out of the way, that it would be green light ahead for them, and this message would die with the messenger. As a saying goes, smite the shepherd and the sheep shall scatter. But they didn't understand that just because Yahushua went back into the spirit world, the message didn't die. That was just the beginning of the message, and a part of that message was that the messenger had to die in order to bring forth or bring back to the Heavenly Father's good graces the elect of the nation of Israel. It says, by stretching forth thine hand to heal, and that signs and wonders may be done by the name of the Holy Child, Yahushua. Yeah, and this is why we exalt those names, because miracles will be done in those names. How and when and how it's going to all go down, we don't know. We know we're at that point at that time. It remains to be seen how it's all going to play out, but it's fast approaching. All right, so let's go back to Psalms 2:1. It says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. So they thought the message would die with the messenger dying, because it happened many times before. You had individuals that had seditions and insurrections and uprisings against the Roman Empire. You had individuals, that led coups, and eventually once the leadership was gone, the rest of them were gone. And this is why these devils, like Abu being one of the devils, that was implicit in that, because he's down with those other individuals that either they were agents from the beginning, or once they left the truth, then they joined forces with the enemy. I'm talking about the ones that were a part of the One West doctrine, the One West school, and defected and came together with those other devils to form TTAK, the Truth After Knowledge. I don't know if they're still together or not. You haven't seen anything from them. The only one that you see still hanging around is Abu from back then. And they thought that once what they call now the original ISUPK, Israeli School of Universal Practical Knowledge. It wasn't the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. It was the Israeli School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Then later, General Yohana changed it. There's a whole lot of history coming out, on this, on this whole issue that's going on. So it was the Israeli School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Once they infiltrated that and set up Comfy as the head of that, everything changed. The doctrine changed. You still had hints of Israel in there and the true breakdowns, but it all changed. And it was brought under the umbrella of the Roman Catholic Church. You see, so they thought that once they eliminated that, because that was, where, High Priest Ariah, High Priest Shaw were, this is where the main influence of the truth came from One West. They thought that once they destroyed that, removed their headquarters to another location, and eventually closed the headquarters down, that would, the message would die with that. And it didn't, because the Lord caused different splits to happen prior to that with men of the Lord that were still out there, banging on Esau, inside joke, banging on Esau, to bring out and to continue the message. And this is why you see it prospering today. This was all done meticulously by the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, because the Lord is a master chess strategist. He does certain things and you don't know, that, damn, why is this happening? Why can't brothers stay together? Why, this happened? Why that happened? Why it went down this way? Why, couldn't they reconcile? Why didn't King Masha and High Priest Ariah, and, why couldn't they reconcile and, come together, and make amends and make everything, the way it used to be? Well, because the Most High had plans. And you see those plans coming to fruition now, years later. So they thought the message would die. These wicked Israelites thought that by helping the Romans, the message would die. Same thing that they're doing today. So those individuals that were a part of the truth after knowledge that were helping Abu and others, try to destroy the truth, they were the same defectors back then during the time of Yahushua. They had to be involved with the hierarchy, of the wicked Pharisees and Sadducees back then that gave the Lord over. And they thought that by destroying the messenger, they would cause the message to stop being taught. And that it didn't work, because this was all a part of the plans of the Most High. So going back to Psalms 2 and 4 now, he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. Right, because they're going to be in derision, and even back then they were in derision. And the Apostle Peter, as you read back through Acts 4, he even said, look, I know that of ignorance you did this, so repent and turn back to the Lord, and you'll be forgiven. But who knows how many of them repented? It remains to be seen. So it says, then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. And this is why in the video, that the brother did, when he spoke about the vision, he said he saw Yahushua sitting on the throne, and he destroyed the IUIC. Because the scriptures say, those my enemies, which would not that I should rule over them, bring them hither and slay them before me. When you're not exalting those names, you're playing a very dangerous game. And the thing is, it's not like they don't know the name. They know the name. They make fun of the name. Now they're introducing Roman Catholic dogma or teachings into, the teachings. So what that's doing is it's causing confusion. And they know better, because that was never taught at the main school. This is something that came out of, that had to come out of, a bag being handed out. Look, you could get this bag, you could get those other bags, keep doing what you're doing, but in order to get this bag, this is what comes with that bag. You got to teach hell. And we got the perfect scriptures to give you to teach it. The fire that never gets quenched, build off of that, the lake of fire. You can build off of that. I'm just playing out a scenario, not saying that's the way it went down. I don't know how it went down. I don't know if the seducing spirits just jumped on them dudes and just made them say that. But the way that things go, and the scriptures speak about doing things for filthy lucre's sake, I wouldn't be surprised if that was along the lines of how it went down. So those of you members out there of the IUIC that see the bullshit, you better get away from them dudes, And we're not saying this for you to get down with GMS. We don't want you to get down with us. You got the knowledge. You know the breakdowns. You know the scriptures. Go and keep teaching, and exalt those names of Yahweh and Yahushua while you teach. And don't call your group anything that has to do with Christ. Use Yahushua. Exalt Yahweh and Yahushua. If so be, the Lord will have mercy on you. Because judgment is coming. Now you could just, he's just trying to fearmonger, whatever. Well, when the time comes, what will you do? What will you do when judgment comes and you find yourself in the midst of it? Now that dream was so intense, the brother said that he was nervous. He's like, damn, after they got destroyed, he said, am I next? And he said a man appeared to him. I'm not sure if it was Yahushua or an angel, and told him to keep on teaching or something like that. I forget exactly how he put it. You can watch the video. Just type in GMS Inquire Early 2, number 2, and watch the video. So I'm gonna leave it off there. They tried to destroy the vision. They tried to destroy it back then. They're trying to destroy it now. But it's not going to happen, because if this counsel of this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of the Most High, you cannot overthrow it, least happily you be found to fight even against the Most High. So you're fighting a losing battle when you're trying to destroy the truth. You know, no matter if you're a heathen or an Israelite, no matter, you know, if you're a foe from the other nations or a foe from within. So with that, you know, I pray that you brothers and sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.